Ryan Clark stood in the compound workshop at 3 in the morning, carefully assembling a communication device that would allow the human volunteers to coordinate without Zorthi monitoring. His military training had taught him that successful. Resistance required secure communications, and Danny Brooks had provided the technical knowledge to build something the Zorthi wouldn't detect. The frequency modulation should keep us off their standard monitoring channels, Danny whispered as he made final adjustments to the device. But we need to be careful about transmission length and timing. Dr. Kevin Stone entered the workshop, carrying medical supplies that he had quietly gathered over the past week. I've identified 12 Zorthi who seem uncomfortable with the military training program. Thea says there's growing opposition among the civilian population to using children as soldiers. The three men had spent 2 weeks planning their resistance. To Supreme General Morin's directive that all hybrid children over the age of 4 begin immediate combat training. Emma Clark had recently turned 4, making her eligible for the program that would separate her from her parents for most of each day. Zara told me that the first training session is scheduled for tomorrow morning, Ryan reported grimly. They want to start with basic physical conditioning and tactical awareness exercises. Dr. Amy Carter entered the workshop carrying a datapad filled with her latest research findings. I've been analyzing the children's development patterns, and I think we may have underestimated their capabilities. Emma solved a strategic puzzle yesterday that took our best Zorthi military analysts 3 hours to complete. She finished it in 12 minutes. Tommy modified the workshop's main computer system without even realizing he was doing it, Danny added. When I asked him about it, he said the machine seemed sad because it was working too hard, so he helped it think better. The conversation was interrupted by a soft knock on the workshop door. Emma Clark entered quietly, followed by Tommy Brooks and Lisa Stone. The 3 hybrid children moved with a coordination that seemed almost telepathic, and their presence immediately changed the atmosphere in the room. Daddy, we know you're worried. About the training, Emma said, looking directly at Ryan with her purple eyes that seemed far too wise for a 4-year-old. We've been talking about it. Dr. Carter leaned forward with interest. Talking about it how Emma. Not with words, Tommy replied, his small hand resting on a piece of equipment that began humming more efficiently under his touch. We share feelings and pictures in our minds. We all understand what the adults are thinking about. Lisa Stone, who had been quiet until now, stepped forward and placed her tiny hand on Dr. Carter's arm. The scared feelings are getting stronger. More bad people are coming, and the Zorthi soldiers are dying. Ryan felt a chill as he realized his daughter and the other hybrid children had developed abilities that even Dr. Carter hadn't documented. Emma, how do you know about the Zorthi soldiers? We feel their hurt from far away, Emma explained simply. The bad people have weapons that make dying take a long time. The Zorthi fighters are brave, but they're not strong enough. Danny knelt down to Tommy's level. Son, do you want to learn how to fight? Tommy considered the question seriously before answering. I want to learn how to protect families. Fighting is just one way to do that, but maybe not the best way. Their conversation was interrupted by an emergency alert that echoed throughout the compound. The adults rushed to the main communication center, where they found Zara Keth and several other Zorthi monitoring incoming reports with expressions of barely controlled panic. What's happening? Ryan asked as he put his arm around Zara's shoulders. A full rack battle fleet has entered our outer system, Zara replied, her voice tight with fear. Intelligence estimates over 200 warships, including their largest Dreadnought-class vessels. Our defense fleet is moving to intercept, but we're outnumbered 5-1. On the main display screen, tactical readings showed the approaching Vrak fleet as red dots moving steadily toward Nexera Prime. The Zorthi defense ships appeared as blue dots, and even to untrained eyes, the disparity in numbers was obvious and terrifying. How long before they reached the planet? Dr. Stone asked. 18 hours at their current speed, replied Commander Lyra Vex, who had arrived at the compound to coordinate civilian evacuation procedures. We're implementing emergency protocols to move non-essential personnel to underground shelters. Emma walked up to the display screen and studied the tactical information with an intensity that made the adults uncomfortable. The Zorthi ships are trying to form a defensive wall here, she said, pointing to a position between the two fleets. But the bad people will go around them and attack the planet while the defenders are out of position. Commander Vex stared at the 4-year-old in amazement. That is exactly what our tactical computers predict. How could you see that so quickly? Because it's what I would do if I wanted to hurt families and didn't care about honor, Emma replied matter-of-factly. The next few hours brought increasingly bad news from the space battle. The Zorthi defense fleet was fighting bravely but losing ships at an alarming rate. Worse yet, long-range sensors detected additional VRAC forces approaching from 2 other directions, making it clear that this was a coordinated invasion design to overwhelm Nexera Prime's defenses. Ryan found himself facing the hardest decision of his life as he watched the tactical displays update with each Zorthi ship that was destroyed. The hybrid children clearly possessed abilities that could make a difference in the battle, but asking them to fight felt like a betrayal of everything he believed about protecting the innocent. The decision was taken away from him when Captain Jake Morrison's voice came through the compound's communication system. The USS Liberty had arrived in the system, along with a small Earth fleet that included 3 destroyers and a carrier loaded with Marine assault troops. "This is Captain Morrison to all human personnel on Nexera Prime," Jake's familiar voice announced. "Colonial Command has authorized full military support for the Zorthi defense. We're here to fight alongside our allies and protect the hybrid families." Ryan felt a mixture of relief and concern as he realized that Earth's government had made the decision to become involved in the war. "Captain, what are your orders regarding the hybrid children?" "The children are to be protected at all costs," Jake replied firmly. "However, if they volunteer to assist in the defense and their parents consent, Command has authorized their participation in non-combat support roles." Emma tugged on Ryan's sleeve and looked up at him with an expression that broke his heart. "Daddy, I want to help Captain Morrison protect our family." "Emma, you're only 4 years old," Ryan said, kneeling down to hold her small hands in his. "But I understand things that the adult soldiers don't understand," Emma replied. "I can see patterns in the way the bad people move their ships. I can help the good soldiers make better plans." Tommy and Lisa joined Emma, presenting a united front that made it clear they had already made their decision. "We know this is scary for the grown-ups," Tommy said gently, "but we can help in ways that don't require us to hurt anyone directly." Dr. Carter had been monitoring the children's conversation while reviewing tactical data from the ongoing battle. "Ryan, the VRAC fleet is using coordination patterns that our computers can't predict quickly enough. But Emma spotted their strategy in seconds. The children might be our only advantage." Lisa Stone walked over to her father and took his hand. "Daddy, I can feel the hurt of the Zorthi soldiers who are dying in space. If I can help them stop hurting, isn't that what doctors are supposed to do?" Dr. Kevin Stone looked down at his daughter and saw a determination that reminded him of why he had become a physician in the first place. "Lisa, helping people is indeed what doctors do, but you're still just a child." "I'm a child who can save lives," Lisa replied simply. "Isn't that more important than staying safe?" The moral dilemma that had been building for weeks reached its climax as Ryan, Danny, and Kevin were forced to choose between their instincts to protect their children and the growing evidence that those same children might be the key to saving both human and Zorthi civilizations. Ryan looked at Emma's determined face and made a decision that he knew would haunt him for the rest of his life. "If you want to help Emma, then we'll find a way for you to contribute that keeps you as safe as possible." Danny and Kevin made similar commitments to their children, knowing that they were crossing a line that could never be uncrossed. Hybrid children were no longer just their beloved offspring. They were becoming something new and unprecedented in the galaxy. As alarms continued to sound throughout the compound, The three families prepared to face whatever came next together. The war that the Zorthi had been preparing for had finally arrived, and the hybrid children who had been created as weapons would now have the chance to choose what kind of warriors they wanted to become. Emma looked up at the stars through the compound's main window and spoke words that chilled every adult who heard them. The bad people think they're stronger because they enjoy hurting others. They're going to learn that protecting the people you love makes you stronger then. 2 years had passed since the first hybrid children were born on Nexera Prime, and Dr. Amy Carter had documented over 30 remarkable offspring with abilities that continued to amaze both human and Zorthi scientists. Emma Clark could now run faster than any human athlete despite being only 3 years old, while Tommy Brooks had begun modifying simple machines to work more efficiently just by touching them. Dr. Carter spent her evenings in the research facility, carefully translating more Zorthi documents that she had gained access to through her official position as the program's chief monitor. What she had discovered in those encrypted files kept her awake at night and filled her with growing dread about the true purpose of the hybrid program. The Zorthi were not just facing a fertility crisis as they had claimed. Hidden deep in there military archives were detailed records of an approaching war with a powerful enemy alliance called the Vrak Confederation. The Vrak were described as a brutal militaristic species that had been expanding across their sector of the galaxy, conquering and enslaving entire civilizations. According to the classified reports, Zorthi intelligence had determined that the Vrak would eventually target both Zorthi and human space. The timeline suggested that a major Vrak offensive could begin within the next 5 years, and traditional Zorthi military forces had proven inadequate in previous encounters with Vrak advanced scouts. The most disturbing revelation was a document signed by Supreme General Cax Morn, the highest-ranking military leader in Zorthi society. The file outlined Project Warrior Genesis, a plan to create genetically enhanced soldiers using human Zorthi, hybrid children as the foundation for an unstoppable military force. Dr. Carter printed the translated documents and locked them in her personal safe, knowing that what she had learned could destroy the trust and relationships that had formed between the human volunteers and their Zorthi partners. But she also knew that Ryan Clark, Danny Brooks, and Dr. Kevin Stone deserved to know the truth about their children's intended future. The next morning, she requested a private meeting with the 3 men in her laboratory. Ryan arrived first, looking concerned about the serious tone of her message. Danny and Kevin joined them shortly after, both men showing the happiness that had become common among the human volunteers as they adapted to their new lives. "I need to show you something that will be difficult to accept," Dr. Carter began, her hands shaking slightly as she opened the file containing the translated documents. "The Zorthi have not been completely honest with us about their reasons for wanting hybrid children." Ryan's military training kicked in immediately. "What kind of dishonesty are we talking about?" Dr. Carter spread the documents across her desk, pointing to the most relevant sections. "They are preparing for war against an enemy called the Vrak Confederation. The hybrid children aren't just meant to save the Zorthi species. They're being designed as weapons for this coming conflict." Danny Brooks leaned forward to read the documents, his face growing pale as he processed the information. "This says they want to begin military training for children as young as 5 years old. That would include Tommy and Emma," Ryan added grimly, his protective instincts flaring as he thought about his daughter. "They've been studying our children's combat potential from the beginning." Dr. Kevin Stone remained quiet for several minutes, reading through the medical specifications that outlined the enhanced physical and mental capabilities the Zorthi hope to develop in the hybrid offspring. "According to this, they believe our children could be trained to operate advanced weapon systems and coordinate complex battle strategies better than any adult soldier. The worst part is that Earth's Colonial Command may already know about this," Dr. Carter continued, showing them another set of documents. "These communication logs suggest that your governments have been in secret negotiations with the Zorthi military leadership. Ryan stood up and began pacing around the small laboratory, his anger building as he considered the implications. So, we were recruited not just as genetic donors, but as breeding stock for a military program. Our children are supposed to become child soldiers for an alien war. The three men spent the rest of the morning discussing their options while Dr. Carter continued to monitor the compound's communication systems. They agreed that they needed to learn more about the VRAC threat before making any decisions about confronting the Zorthi leadership. That afternoon, their investigation was interrupted by an emergency alert that echoed throughout the compound. Zorthi military personnel began moving with urgent purpose, and transport ships could be seen launching from the military facilities on the horizon. Zara, Kef found Ryan in the common area and sat down beside him with a worried expression. There has been an attack on one of our mining colonies in the outer system. VRAC scouts have destroyed the entire facility and killed over 3,000 civilians. VRAC scouts? Ryan asked, pretending not to know about the enemy species. Who are they? A savage race that conquers worlds for their resources, Zara replied. We have been monitoring their expansion for decades, but this is the first time they have attacked Zorthi territory directly. Ryan felt conflicted as he watched the pain in Zara's eyes. She genuinely cared about her people and the threat they faced, but she had also been part of the deception about the hybrid children's intended purpose. Danny found Nira in their workshop, where she was frantically working on what appeared to be weapon modifications. The VRAC attack changes everything, she explained without looking up from her work. Our conventional forces suffered heavy casualties, even against a small scouting party. If they launch a full invasion, we may not be able to defend ourselves. What does this mean for our children? Danny asked directly. Nira stopped working and turned to face him. The military council is meeting tonight to discuss accelerating the hybrid training program. They believe our children may be our only hope against the VRAC threat. Dr. Stone found Thea in the medical facility, preparing emergency supplies and trauma equipment. How bad was the attack? He asked. Worse than we expected, Thea replied sadly. The VRAC use weapons that cause extreme suffering before death. They seem to enjoy causing pain to their victims. Our wounded survivors are telling stories that are difficult to believe. That evening, the three human men met again in Dr. Carter's laboratory to discuss what they had learned from their partners. The VRAC threat appeared to be real and immediate, which complicated their feelings about the military training program for their children. If the VRAC are as brutal as they claim, maybe our children do need to be prepared to fight, Danny said reluctantly. Tommy is only 2 years old, but he's already smarter than most adults. If he could help defend innocent people... No, Ryan interrupted firmly. I didn't come here to turn my daughter into a weapon, regardless of the threat. There has to be another way to deal with this VRAC problem. Dr. Stone looked troubled as he considered both sides of the dilemma. But what if refusing to allow military training means that Emma, Tommy, and Lisa grow up in a galaxy controlled by a species that enjoys causing suffering? What kind of future would that be? Their debate was interrupted when Emma Clark walked into the laboratory, having somehow bypassed the security locks that should have kept children out of the restricted area. The 3-year-old looked at the adults with her unusual purple eyes and spoke in a voice that carried wisdom beyond her years. The bad people hurt families, Emma said simply. I want to stop bad people from hurting families. Ryan knelt down. To his daughter's level, amazed once again by her ability to understand complex situations. Emma, how did you know about the bad people? I hear the scared feelings from far away, Emma replied, pointing toward the horizon where the military facilities were located. Mama Zara is scared. Uncle Danny's mama Nira is scared. Everyone is scared of the bad people who hurt families. Doctor. Carter realized that Emma's enhanced abilities included some form of empathic sensing that allowed her to detect emotional states from a considerable distance. This capability hadn't been documented in any of the research files, suggesting that the hybrid children were developing abilities that even the Zorthi hadn't anticipated. over the following days, more disturbing news arrived from the site of the Vrak attack. The enemy had left behind evidence that they were studying Zorti technology and biology, suggesting that the attack had been as much about gathering intelligence as causing damage. Supreme General Caxmorn arrived at the compound with a full military escort to meet with the human volunteers and their families. The imposing Zorti leader was taller than average for his species, with ceremonial markings that indicated his high rank and long service record. "Humans, we face a crisis that threatens both our species," General Morn announced during a formal gathering in the compound's main hall. "The Vrak Confederation has begun their assault on our territory, and their ultimate goal is the elimination of all intelligent life that refuses to serve them." Ryan stood up to address the general directly. "What does this have to do with our children? Your hybrid offspring possess capabilities that could turn the tide of this." 6 months had passed since Captain Jake Morrison sent his encrypted message to Earth about the Zorthi proposal. The response from Colonial Command had been swift and decisive after weeks of heated debates in government halls and scientific institutions around the world. Earth's leaders had agreed to a limited trial program with strict monitoring protocols. Ryan Clark stepped off the transport shuttle onto the surface of Nexera Prime, the Zorthi homeworld, and immediately felt the difference in gravity. At 32 years old, the former Marine sergeant had volunteered for the program after losing his wife in a mining accident on Mars. He carried only a small bag of personal belongings and a heart full of uncertainty about what lay ahead. Standing beside him were Danny Brooks, a spacecraft engineer from Luna Colony, and Dr. Kevin Stone, a physician who had specialized in reproductive medicine back on Earth. All three men had passed extensive psychological and physical evaluations before being selected from over 10,000 volunteers worldwide. "Gentlemen, welcome to Nexera Prime," said Dr. Amy Carter, who had arrived 2 weeks earlier to prepare for their arrival. The xenobiologist looked excited but tired from her constant research and documentation efforts. The landscape around them was breathtaking. Purple and silver trees swayed in the gentle breeze, while crystalline structures that served as Zorati buildings rose gracefully from the ground like natural formations. The sky held 2 suns, casting everything in a warm, golden light that felt surprisingly comfortable. "The Zorthi had prepared a residential compound for you about 2 miles from here," Dr. Carter explained as they climbed into a hovering vehicle that moved silently across the ground. "You have individual apartments, common areas, and full access to recreational facilities. They want you to feel as comfortable as possible." Ryan watched the alien landscape pass by and wondered what his life would be like in this strange new world. The Zorthi had been completely honest about their expectations, but the reality of leaving Earth forever still felt overwhelming. The compound was more luxurious than anything Ryan had ever seen. His apartment featured rooms that adjusted their temperature and lighting automatically, furniture that molded itself to his body for perfect comfort, and windows that could display any view from Earth's database of natural scenes. "Tomorrow you'll meet your assigned partners," Dr. Carter told the 3 men as they gathered in the central common area that evening. "The Zorthi have used genetic compatibility testing and psychological profiling to make the matches. They believe these pairings have the highest chance of successful reproduction and emotional bonding." Danny Brooks, a quiet man in his late 20s, looked nervous. "What if we don't get along with them? What if the attraction isn't there?" "The Zorthi understand that forced relationships don't work," Dr. Carter replied. "If a pairing doesn't feel right, they'll arrange for different matches. They're more interested in long-term success than quick results." The next morning, Ryan was introduced to Zara Keth in a beautiful garden filled with plants from dozens of different worlds. She was tall and graceful like all Zorthi, but there was something about her confident posture and direct gaze that reminded him of the military officers he had known back on Earth. "I am honored to meet you, Ryan Clark," Zara said in English that carried only the slightest accent. "I have studied human culture extensively in preparation for this partnership." Ryan found himself surprisingly comfortable talking with her. "What do you do here on Nexra Prime?" "I am a military strategist for our defense forces," Zara replied. "I study battle tactics and coordinate our planetary security systems." "What did you do on Earth?" "I was a Marine sergeant. I led combat teams and trained new recruits." Ryan felt a connection forming already, based on their shared military background. Danny Brooks was paired with Nira Vell, a Zorathi technology specialist, who shared his fascination with spacecraft engineering. Their first conversation lasted 6 hours as they discussed propulsion systems and energy distribution networks that were far beyond current human understanding. Dr. Kevin Stone found himself matched with Thea Zor, a Zorathi medical researcher, who was eager to learn about human biology and share knowledge about Zorathi healing techniques. Their partnership began as a professional collaboration, but quickly developed into something deeper. Over the following weeks, the relationships between the human volunteers and their Zorathi partners grew stronger. Ryan was amazed by Zara's intelligence and her ability to think strategically about complex problems. She was equally impressed by his practical combat experience and his ability to remain calm under pressure. "Your species has an interesting approach to conflict resolution," Zara told him one evening as they walked through the compound gardens. "Zorathi prefer to avoid direct confrontation, but humans seem willing to face problems head-on. Sometimes, you have to fight for what matters," Ryan replied. "But we prefer peace when it's possible." Danny and Nira spent most of their time in the compound's workshop, where she taught him about Zorathi technology while he shared human engineering principles. Their relationship grew through shared projects and late-night discussions about the possibilities of combining their species' technical knowledge. Dr. Stone and Thea worked together in the medical facility, where she showed him healing techniques that seemed almost magical. Zorathi medical technology could repair damaged tissue at the cellular level and eliminate most diseases before they could take hold in the body. "Human medicine focuses on treating symptoms," Thea observed as they reviewed comparative studies. "Zorathi medicine prevents problems before they occur. Together, we could create healthcare systems that surpass both approaches." 9 months after the partnerships began, the first hybrid children were born. Ryan held his daughter Emma in his arms and felt a love unlike anything he had ever experienced. The baby looked mostly human, but had her mother's purple eyes and slightly elongated features that gave her an otherworldly beauty. "She is perfect," Zara whispered, touching the tiny hand that gripped Ryan's finger with surprising strength. Dr. Carter documented everything, taking detailed measurements and genetic samples, while trying not to interfere with the bonding process between parents and children. Her preliminary findings were remarkable. Danny and Nira's son Tommy displayed an unusual interest in the electronic devices around the medical facility. At just 2 weeks old, he would reach toward blinking lights and seem to track the movement of data displays with his eyes. Dr. Stone and Thea's daughter Lisa showed enhanced physical development from her earliest days. Her muscle tone was exceptional, and she seemed to require less sleep than typical human infants. The hybrid children are developing faster than either human or Zorathi babies, Dr. Carter reported to Captain Morrison during one of their regular communications with the Liberty. Their cognitive development is accelerated, and they show physical capabilities that exceed both parent species. As the children grew, their remarkable abilities became more obvious. Emma Clark could lift objects that should have been too heavy for a child her age. By 18 months, she was manipulating complex toys and solving puzzles that challenged much older children. Tommy Brooks showed an intuitive understanding of technology that amazed even Zorathi engineers. Before his 2nd birthday, he could operate control panels by simply touching them, as if he understood their functions instinctively. Lisa Stone demonstrated healing abilities that seemed to come from her Zorathi genetics combined with human adaptability. Minor injuries healed within hours instead of days, and she never showed signs of illness despite exposure to various planetary microorganisms. Dr. Carter spent long hours studying the children's development and documenting their abilities. Her reports back to Earth generated excitement in scientific communities, but also raised concerns among government officials who worried about the implications of such enhanced humans. These children represent the next step in human evolution, she recorded in her personal logs. But they also raise questions about what it means to be human when your capabilities far exceed those of your own species. Ryan noticed that Emma seemed to understand conversations that should have been beyond her comprehension. When he and Zara discussed military tactics, the toddler would listen intently and sometimes point to tactical displays as if she understood the strategic implications. She has the mind of both our species, Zara observed proudly. Human creativity combined with Zorthi logical processing. She will be capable of things neither of us could accomplish alone. Danny found that Tommy can help him solve engineering problems by simply playing with the components. The child's intuitive grasp of how systems work together often led to breakthroughs that had puzzled EXPERIENCED. Engineers. Dr. Stone discovered that Lisa could sense illness in others before symptoms appeared. The child would become restless around anyone who was developing health problems, as if she could detect biological imbalances that medical scanners missed. As the first year of the program concluded, Dr. Carter compiled her findings into a comprehensive report. The hybrid children showed enhanced strength, speed, and reflexes that surpassed human norms. Their cognitive abilities developed at twice the normal rate, and they... Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Liberty, watching the stars through the main viewing screen. 3 years into their deep space mission, his crew had mapped dozens of systems, but found no signs of intelligent life. That was about to change. Captain, we're detecting multiple ships approaching from the Kepler 442 system, reported Lieutenant Ben Hayes from his tactical station. His voice carried a hint of excitement, mixed with concern. Jake moved closer to the tactical display. 5 sleek vessels, unlike anything in human records, moved in perfect formation toward their position. The ships were elegant, almost artistic in design, with smooth curves and a pale blue metallic surface that seemed to shimmer in the starlight. Are their weapons powered? Jake asked. Ben checked his readings twice before responding. No, sir, but their technology is far beyond ours. These ships could probably destroy us without breaking formation. Dr. Amy Carter, the ship's xenobiologist, looked up from her science station with wide eyes. Captain, I'm reading life signs aboard those vessels. The biological patterns are unlike anything we've encountered. Jake felt his heart rate increase. After decades of searching, humanity had finally found proof they weren't alone in the universe. Open a channel on all frequencies. The main screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at a tall, graceful being with pale blue skin and elongated features. The alien's eyes were larger than human eyes, a deep purple color that seemed to hold ancient wisdom. When it spoke, Jake nearly fell over. Greetings, humans of the vessel Liberty. I am Commander Lyra Vex of the Zorthi Fleet. We come in peace and wish to speak with your leader. The bridge fell silent. Jake stared at the screen, trying to process what he had just heard. The alien had spoken perfect English with only a slight accent that sounded almost musical. I am Captain Jake Morrison. He finally managed to say, How do you know our language? Commander Vex smiled, an expression that looked remarkably human despite the alien features. We have been observing your species for some time, Captain Morrison. Your broadcasts travel far through space, and we have learned much about humanity from them. Jake glanced at Ben, who was still staring at his tactical display in disbelief. Dr. Carter was frantically taking notes, her scientific excitement barely contained. Commander Vex, would you be willing to meet in person? We have much to discuss. That would be most welcome, Captain. However, I must warn you that we come with a request that may seem unusual. Our species faces a crisis that threatens our very existence. An hour later, Commander Vex and 2 other Zorthi officers materialized in the Liberty's main conference room, using a transportation technology that left the human crew speechless. Up close, the aliens were even more impressive. They stood nearly 7 feet tall with graceful movements that reminded Jake of dancers. Their clothing appeared to be made from a material that shifted colors subtly as they moved. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with us," Commander Vex said as he took a seat that had been quickly adjusted for his height. "Allow me to introduce Science Director Colfane and Military Advisor Rencax." Dr. Carter leaned forward eagerly. "Commander, your people are remarkable. How long have you been traveling through space?" "Our civilization has been exploring the galaxy for over 10,000 of your years," Colfane replied. "We have encountered hundreds of species, but none quite like humanity." Jake noticed something odd about the Zorthi delegation. "Commander, are all your crew members male?" A shadow passed over Commander Vex's face. "That brings us to why we have sought you out, Captain Morrison. Our species is dying." The Zorthi leader stood and began pacing slowly around the conference table. "Centuries ago, a genetic plague swept through our homeworld. It didn't kill us directly, but it damaged our reproductive capabilities. Our males have become increasingly sterile with each passing generation." Ben shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "What does this have to do with us?" "Our scientists have been searching the galaxy for a solution," Rencax explained. "We have studied the genetics of every intelligent species we've encountered, looking for compatibility. Until now, we found nothing." Commander Vex stopped pacing and looked directly at Jake. "Human males possess something unique, Captain. Your genetic structure shows remarkable compatibility with our females. In all our travels, we have never found another species with this potential." Dr. Carter's eyes widened as she began to understand the implications. "You're suggesting interbreeding between our species?" "More than suggesting," Commander Vex replied. "We are proposing a partnership that could benefit both our peoples. Human males who volunteered to mate with Zorthi females could help preserve our species while gaining access to technologies that would advance humanity by thousands of years." Jake felt the weight of the moment settling on his shoulders. "What kind of technologies are we talking about?" Colfane activated a small device, and holographic images filled the air above the conference table. Faster-than-light communication that works instantly across any distance. Energy weapons that could revolutionize your defensive capabilities. Medical advances that could extend human lifespans to over 500 years. The images showed incredible cities floating in space, ships that could travel between galaxies, and medical devices that could heal any injury within hours. Jake watched his crew's faces as they absorbed what they were seeing. The offspring of such unions would be remarkable. Commander Vex continued. "Our preliminary genetic modeling suggests that human Zorthi hybrids will possess the best traits of both species. Enhanced physical capabilities, advanced cognitive processing, and lifespans that could reach 1,000 years. Ben Hayes spoke up, his tactical training making him suspicious. "Why haven't you forced this? Your technology is clearly superior to ours." "Because forced reproduction creates weak offspring," Rencax replied. "Our scientists have learned that genetic compatibility requires willing participants. The emotional and psychological bonds between partners actually affect the genetic expression in the children." Dr. Carter was furiously taking notes. "This is incredible. The implications for both species are enormous. But surely there are risks involved?" "All reproduction involves risks," Commander Vex acknowledged. "However, our medical technology can monitor and assist throughout the process. We have facilities that can ensure the safety of both human males and Zorthi females." Jake stood and walked to the window, looking out at the Zorthi ships hanging in space nearby. The decision he made in the next few hours could change the course of human history. "Commander, this is not a decision I can make alone. I need to consult with Earth's government and scientific community." "Of course, Captain Morrison. We understand the magnitude of what we are proposing. We are prepared to wait while your leaders consider our offer." Dr. Carter looked up from her notes. "Commander Vex, would it be possible to visit one of your Ships, I would love to see your medical facilities and learn more about Zorthi biology. That can be arranged, Dr. Carter. In fact, we encourage as much cultural and scientific exchange as possible. Understanding between our species will be crucial if we are to move forward together. As the meeting concluded, Jake felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension. The Zorthi offer represented an incredible opportunity for humanity, but it also raised questions he wasn't sure how to answer. What would happen to the hybrid children? Would they consider themselves human, Zorthi, or something entirely new? Commander Vex, Jake said, as the aliens prepared to leave, how many human volunteers would you need? Initially, perhaps 100 males. If the program proves successful, we could expand gradually. We estimate that within 50 years, we could have a stable hybrid population that could carry both our species into the future. After the Zorthi departed, Jake remained in the conference room with his senior staff. The weight of the decision ahead seemed to fill the room like a physical presence. Ben, prepare an encrypted message to Colonial Command, Priority Alpha Classification. What are you going to tell them, Captain? Dr. Carter asked. Jake looked out at the alien ships one more time before answering. The truth? That we've made contact with an alien species that wants to create a new form of intelligent life using human genetics, and that the future of both species might depend on our answer. The news of Zara's true identity spread through the human base like wildfire. Some soldiers called for her immediate execution, while others argued that she had proven her loyalty through her actions. Jake Morrison found himself in the middle of a bitter divide that threatened to tear his forces apart. Colonel Stevens paced back and forth in the command bunker, his face red with anger. Morrison, that alien has been deceiving us for weeks. How do we know this isn't all part of some elaborate Korthic plan? Because she's been saving our lives, sir, Jake replied. Without Zara's help, we would have lost this war weeks ago. Her help? She's been feeding information to the enemy. Our people are dying because of her. Amy Carter looked up from her communication equipment. Colonel, I've been analyzing the intelligence leaks. The information pattern doesn't match Zara's access times. Someone else has been sending data to the Korthic. Stevens stopped pacing. What do you mean? The leaked information includes details about supply schedules and personnel rotations that Zara never had access to. The real spy is someone with administrative clearance. Before Stevens could respond, Danny Brooks burst into the bunker. Captain, we've got a problem. Half the soldiers are refusing to fight alongside the alien. They want her locked up or shot. Through the bunker's reinforced window, Jake could see Zara sitting alone in the courtyard. Her damaged armor had been partially repaired, but she had left her helmet off. Her pale blue skin and silver hair made her look like something from a dream, but the sadness in her violet eyes was very real. She saved my life 3 times, Danny said quietly. I don't care what species she is. Lisa Hayes entered the bunker with a group of soldiers behind her. Captain, we need to make a decision. About the alien. The Korthic fleet is regrouping for another attack, and our people are more worried about her than the enemy. Jake looked at the tactical display showing enemy forces massing in orbit. They had maybe 6 hours before the final assault began. Bring Zara here, Jake ordered. It's time she explained everything. Lisa hesitated. Sir, some of the soldiers might try to hurt her. Then make sure they don't. 10 minutes later, Zara entered the command bunker surrounded by guards. She moved with fluid grace despite her injuries, and her alien beauty seemed to fill the room with an otherworldly presence. Colonel, Stevens glared at her with undisguised hatred. Well, alien, let's hear your story. Why should we trust anything you say? Zara's musical voice was calm and clear. Because I am going to tell you how to destroy the Korthic command ship and end this war. In exchange for what? Stevens demanded. In exchange for nothing. I do not expect forgiveness or friendship. I only want to stop the killing. Jake stepped forward. Zara, you say you're part of a resistance movement. Tell us about that. Zara nodded, her violet eyes distant with memory. When my people's council voted to invade Earth, many of us opposed the decision. We believed that conquering another intelligent species was morally wrong and would corrupt our civilization. So, what did you do about it? Amy asked. We tried to stop the invasion through political means, but we were outnumbered. Some of us decided to take direct action. I volunteered to come to Earth and help humans defend themselves, Stephen scoffed. You expect us to believe you risked your life for the sake of strangers? Zara looked directly at him. Colonel Stevens, your species, and mine are not so different. We both value courage, loyalty, and protecting those who cannot protect themselves. I could not stand by and watch my people destroy yours. Danny spoke up from the back of the room. What about the intelligence leaks? If you're not the spy, then who is? Before Zara could answer, Amy's equipment began beeping urgently. She studied. Her screams with growing alarm. Captain, I'm detecting a transmission going out from this base right now. Someone is sending our current defensive positions to the Korthic fleet. All eyes turned to Colonel Stevens, who had gone pale. Amy traced the signal to its source, and her face showed shock and betrayal. The transmission is coming from the Colonel's personal communication device. Stevens reached for his sidearm, but Jake was faster. Don't even think about it, Stevens. You're the spy. You don't understand, Stevens said desperately. They have. My family, my wife and children are prisoners on the command ship. They said they would kill them if I didn't cooperate. The revelation hit everyone like a physical blow. Their own commander had been feeding information to the enemy, not out of greed or ideology, but out of love for his family. How long? Jake asked quietly. Since the beginning. They captured them during the first wave and have been using them to control me ever since. Zara stepped forward, her alien features showing genuine compassion. Colonel, I understand your pain, but your cooperation will not save your family. Once the Korthic conquer Earth, they will have no further use for human hostages. You're lying, Stephen said, but his voice lacked conviction. I am not. I have seen how my people treat conquered populations. Your family is already dead, Colonel. You have been helping the enemy for nothing. Stevens collapsed into a chair, the weight of his betrayal finally crushing him. What have I done? You tried to save the people you love, Zara said gently. But now you can honor their memory by helping us win this war. Jake looked at the tactical display showing the approaching Korthic fleet. Zara, you said you know how to destroy their command ship. We're running out of time. Zara moved to the display and pointed at the largest alien vessel. The command ship has a weakness in its defensive grid. There is a small access port used for maintenance that leads directly to the power core. How small? Danny asked. Small enough that only one person can fit through. And that person would need to know the internal layout of the ship to reach. The power core being detected. Jake understood immediately. You're talking about a suicide mission. Yes, someone must infiltrate the ship and overload the power core from the inside. The explosion will destroy the entire fleet. And you're volunteering? Zara nodded. I am the only one who can navigate the ship's interior. As a Korthic, I can move through their corridors without being immediately detected. Amy looked up from her equipment. Zara, even if you succeed, you won't survive the explosion. I know, but if I do not try, all of humanity will die. My people will strip your planet bare and enslave any survivors. Stevens raised his head, tears streaming down. His face. Let me go instead. It's my fault they know our defenses. Let me make up for what I've done. You cannot navigate a Korthic ship, Colonel. Only I have that knowledge. Jake felt the weight of command pressing down on him. Sending Zara on a suicide mission felt wrong, but he could see no alternative. There has to be another way. There is not, Captain. The command ship will begin its final bombardment in 4 hours. If we do not act now, this base and everyone in it will be destroyed. Lisa stepped forward. If you're going, you're not going alone. We'll create a distraction to help you get aboard." Zara smiled, and the expression transformed her alien features into something achingly beautiful. "Thank you, but this is something I must do alone." 2 hours later, Zara stood in the hangar bay wearing her repaired armor. The helmet was back in place, but everyone now knew the face it concealed. Jake and his team had gathered to see her off. "Zara," Jake said, "I want you to know that you've earned our respect. You're the bravest person I've ever known, human or otherwise. Thank you, Captain. That means more to me than you can imagine." Zara climbed into a captured Cortex shuttle and prepared for launch. Through the cockpit window, she could see the faces of the humans she had fought beside for so many weeks. "Zara," Amy's voice came over the radio, "when this is over, we'll make sure people remember what you did." "Remember that not all Cortex are enemies," Zara replied. "Some of us believe in doing what is right, regardless of species." The shuttle launched into space, heading toward the massive command ship that hung in orbit like a silver moon. Jake watched it disappear among the stars and wondered if he would ever see Zara again. 30 minutes later, a brilliant flash lit up the sky as the Cortex command ship exploded. The shockwave destroyed every alien vessel in the fleet, ending the invasion in a single moment of sacrifice. Zara's final transmission reached the base just before the explosion. "Tell them that friendship between our peoples is possible. Tell them that some wars end not in conquest, but in understanding." In the days that followed, other Cortex resistance members arrived at Earth, seeking asylum and offering to help rebuild what the war had destroyed. They came because they had heard about Zara's sacrifice and wanted to follow her example. Jake Morrison kept Zara's damaged helmet in his office as a reminder that heroes could come from the most unexpected places. Sometimes the greatest courage was found not in those who looked like you, but in those brave enough to stand up for what was right, no matter the cost. The war was over, but Zara's legacy lived on in the peace that followed.